Good evening. I'm Monsignor Charles Minor, and this evening on Real to Real, we're going to meet Angela Falciani, a school teacher at St. Joseph's in Swedesboro, New Jersey, who is held in such high esteem by her students and colleagues that the Angela Falciani Day has been declared an observance by the local mayor. We'll also visit the United States Public Health Hospital in Louisiana, where their specialty is the treatment of Hansen's disease, known to most of us as leprosy. While it is true that the majority of the more than 20 million people afflicted with the disease are from other lands, between 2,000 and 3,000 cases of leprosy were reported here in the United States. Around the Delaware Valley, Father Charles Diamond's theme will be Christian unity. This past week, local churches joined the national observance of Christian Unity Week. And in People and Places, we'll meet a talented jazz musician who also happens to be a New Orleans priest. First up is a visit to the United States Public Health Hospital in Carville, Louisiana. It is a specialty hospital for the treatment of Hansen's disease, commonly known as leprosy. When we say leprosy, we usually conjure up ideas of faraway lands, and it is true that more than 20 million patients in the world are mostly in the faraway lands, but 2,000 to 3,000 of them are here in the United States. 350 of them are treated at Carville.
Carville, Louisiana, a small Mississippi River town about 75 miles north of New Orleans. Undistinguished, except that it is the site of one of the most unusual hospital and research centers in the world, and the only one of its kind in the continental United States. In 1892, it was known as a leprosarium, and those who had the disease, known then as leprosy, were removed from society and sent here. Today, on the grounds of the large, sprawling plantation, once the home of a Confederate general, stands the world leader in research into Hansen's disease, as it is now called. It is also a world leader in an effort to debunk more than 5,000 years of public misunderstanding of the disease.
Carville was primarily a place where patients came and pretty much stayed for the rest of their lives, for the most part. Sometime back, 30 years or so ago, it was probably more like a prison atmosphere here than it was a hospital.
Dr. John Troutman, for 12 years director of Carville, has seen tremendous medical strides toward elimination and control of Hansen's disease. Control of public attitudes has been more difficult.
Part of this is a result of the biblical descriptions. Part of it is for perhaps valid reasons back in years gone by. But whatever it is due to, it isn't justified.
Those afflicted with the disease have received harsh treatment from history. It was no less the case in 1892 when Louisiana health officials told local residents that the old plantation up the road was being turned into an ostrich farm, so as not to alarm anyone. Patients were ferried in on barges in the middle of the night and were deposited like so much refuse to be separated out and thrown away. In 1896, however, a courageous band of nuns, Daughters of Charity, arrived and turned the squalid, run-down manor into a livable home for these people. Today, though the hospital is now a United States public health facility, the Daughters of Charity are still here. Sister Laura Stricker has been here for 55 years. Helping and serving, and she remains surprised and indignant at the way people treat her patients.
They suffer more from the stigma that's connected with the word L-E-P-E-R than they do from the disease itself. There was an old patient here, had been here for years, and she succeeded in getting the 24 negative tests to be discharged. And she wrote to her daughter and said she was ready to come home, and the daughter said they didn't want her. And they found her with the letter in her hand on her bed, died. She died from the shock. They found the lady with the disease arrested or cured, and her own daughter couldn't accept her.
But what is this disease that has generated so much fear and revulsion over the centuries that would cause a daughter to reject a mother? In the Old Testament book of Leviticus, the disease as it is described actually refers to a whole range of different maladies. Only as recently as 1874 did a doctor named Hansen discover that the disease was caused by a bacteria that attacks the nervous system. Since that discovery, control of the disease has developed to the point at which today, with early diagnosis, the crippling deformities caused by the disease can be avoided. At Carville, doctors discovered that the germ could be cultured successfully in armadillos. With large supplies of the bacteria previously in short supply, doctors have been able to speed up research. Today, the disease is 100% arrestable, and treated patients are no longer contagious.
It would appear that the overwhelming majority of people in the world are not susceptible to this infection.
Dr. Robert Jacobson, a leading clinician at the hospital, feels that at present in the United States, the disease is under control.
Our aim with treatment then is to prevent further damage, and for the most part we are successful. We also want to prevent the spread of the disease to the individual's contacts, and the treatment effectively does this. It provides, if you like, a kind of chemical isolation.
Carville has gone a long way in conquering Hansen's disease, but as almost everyone here will tell you, it's not the disease that really cripples. It's the reaction of the public to it, and to those who have it, that hurts. So to get the word out on Hansen's disease, or HD, the Center publishes a bi-monthly magazine called The Star. It has a circulation of about 70,000 throughout the United States and 118 foreign countries. Louis Boudreau, a patient at Carville, is chairman of the editorial board and feels strongly, almost militantly, that the public needs to be educated about the disease.
Hansen's disease was never intended as a synonym for leprosy. Anyone who uses Hansen's disease as a synonym for leprosy is perpetuating a grave injustice, that dates back to the Dark Ages. Well, the problem that we have is with the terminology. The stigma of the disease is what is very bad. As a matter of fact, it is often worse than the disease itself, because the victims of the disease are made social outcasts, and so are their families very often. The Star's primary objective is to promote a better public understanding of the disease that we prefer to call Hansen's disease.
The magazine, the study and research, these are the broader concerns of the hospital at Carville. But life here has an immediacy that comes from the cycle of daily routines and patient activities. While doctors are working on breakthroughs against the disease, patients can be found working on their own. Perhaps it's learning to write all over again with a special arm brace, or learning how to button a shirt. In the worst cases, coordination is lost in arms and legs, so special braces and shoes have to be made in the hospital shop. For Bill Burton, getting used to Hansen's disease has become a way of life, and he's adapted very well. The one thing he can't get used to, though, is the public's attitude toward his disability.
The name leprosy, when it is first mentioned to the public, immediately there is a reaction of revulsion. And even in some religious circles, it is considered that you have sinned in some way. The disease is connected with sin. And because you have been sinful, because you have had sin in your life, you have leprosy. Now, I have never looked at it that way.
The hardest thing for many patients to accept is the dependence on others that the disease often creates. But that's never stopped Bill.
The only time I really depend on anyone is when I have an operation, when I'm handicapped to the extent that I cannot do for myself. But like Mrs. Elwood said, I dress myself, I feed my own self, I do anything that I want to do. Of course, there are things that I need help with. Right now, I can't think of it.
It would be very easy for Bill to let things get him down. To have to deal with the disease with all its effects for all of his life, well, all of it's enough to get anyone down, but not Bill.
In my estimation, in my own life, I would say that it has strengthened me. I enjoy life, I really have. All my life I've enjoyed life. And I try to live it to the fullest.
To live life to the fullest, that is every patient's dream.
Because of medical advances in the fight against Hansen's disease, never before has it been more possible. Perhaps someday the public that once ran in fear from these people will learn to accept them and allow them to heal in the fullest sense, in spirit as well as in body.
This story brings to my mind the one of Father Damien the leper, who, when he discovered his own infection, gave a touching talk to his congregation, beginning with the words, "We lepers." But one need not be infected to understand and appreciate the courage needed by the people at Carville, Louisiana.
For the past 75 years, Christians around the world, both Catholic and Protestant, have been coming together in their churches during 1 week each year to pray for Christian unity. Now, why is Christian unity important? Well, it's important because that's what God really wants. And the division that exists among the Christian churches today is not God-made, it's man-made. Now, you might ask yourselves, what is the significance of a week of prayer for Christian unity? Some of you may see little or no significance in it. 75 years ago, 2 or 3 people saw a week of prayer for unity important. And through this coming together, major international organizations like the World Council of Churches was developed. And today, important conversations are taking place between the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, and many of your major Protestant denominations, none of which would have happened unless there was a growing concern reflected in prayer for the unity of the Christian church throughout the world. I would hope that sometime in the near future, and perhaps every day, that you would take some time in your own personal prayer life to pray for unity. It is important. It is what God wants.
What we have here is the Johnny Horn Jazz Giants plus 1. That 1 is a Jesuit priest named Frank Coco who plays the clarinet like, well, let's just say he really knows how to play the old licorice stick. He began playing at 11, and it wasn't long before the Dixieland sounds of New Orleans had reached his ear. At 17, Father Frank entered the Jesuit novitiate and for a while played only for himself and friends. But now Frank's back out in public, playing his heart out. He's even on an album with the Ronnie Cole Trio. How good is he? Well, take a listen.
Sometimes it seems like the important jobs in our society are the least recognized and appreciated. Firefighters, social worker, mothers, teachers, these are people who make a life out of promoting the lives of others. Largely unnoticed, they move among us, making their quiet but earth-moving contributions, one person at a time. Tonight, Reel to Reel takes a look at one such person, Angela Falciani. For nearly 28 years, she has had more impact on the minds of her young charges than anyone except their parents. Not only is Angela a warm and genuine person, she is a teacher with a difference.
And what happens when I put an E at the end of the word? What happens to these two vowels? Basil? Right. And what is the word? Let's sound it out. What is it? Here. What is it? Mate. Eight. What is it? I want to hear the A. Mate. Mate. All right.
I've always thought about teaching. Ever since I was a little girl, I've wanted to teach. And it's the one thing that I've liked, and thank God my husband has gone along with me, and I've wanted to teach, and I'm still teaching. I think the experience of working with children is really great. And just by listening to them, as you heard them today, just by listening to them read, it is hectic at the beginning of the school year, and you feel, gee, will this child ever read a sentence without stopping? And then come about the month of January, I begin to see some light, and it is really a great feeling.
All right, Roseanne.
But I learn from the children every day.
Lord Jesus, come, Lord Jesus, come.
Angela epitomizes a famous verse of mine: if you work upon marble, it will perish. If you work upon brass, time will efface it. But if you work upon immortal souls and imbue in them the right principles, they will brighten for all eternity. One day, Angela was very upset, and I saw her crying at Mass. And after Mass, I asked her, why she was so upset. And she said that her husband wanted her to quit teaching, and he would pay another teacher to come in and take her place. And Angela was very upset because she just loves teaching and education, and she felt that she didn't want to give it up. Being a lawyer, he hardly ever gets to see her. He has late cases and so on. And I thought probably that he wanted to communicate with her a little more. So I said to her, well, why don't you become my vice principal, and then you can come in at an executive time, 9:30, 10 o'clock. You can have breakfast with your husband, and then you can get home at 2:30 before he comes home and get his supper ready or dinner. But now she's back to teaching almost the whole day, except that she comes in at 9:30.
There is a difference to our story about this teacher. In 1977, the mayor of Swedesboro declared May 24th Angela Falciani Day, citing her steadfast devotion without compensation. Angela has not accepted a paycheck in her 28 years of service to St. Joseph's. We asked her why.
I think it is one way of showing of being thankful that I have a healthy family, I have a happy family, and it is one way of saying, thank you, God.
Yeah, I think she and my father are both pretty amazing, and as you can see, they're both very busy, and yet they've had enough time for us you know, for every kid in the family. Whenever we've been in sports or have been riding or something, they've had time to be with us and to support us. And yet at the same time, they're both incredibly busy. It's hard to tell which one's busier than the other. She's a tough teacher to begin with, and my own opinion is that because I was her son, she was even tougher on me. I always had to have my homework done. She was a good teacher, though. She always conveyed the material we were discussing. She was always prepared. And the discipline, she's a very discipline-oriented teacher, and that was probably a good thing.
I've experienced her involvement in Catholic education for 26 years or more, and I would first have to say that it's good. She is a hard worker, as you very well know. Angela's up at 6 o'clock and is marking papers long after I've gone to bed or read my last file in preparation for the next day's work.
Well, naturally, my children and my family come first, but I leave after the children, and yet I am home when the children are home. Holidays, I am home. Weekends, I am home. And in teaching, it makes it, it's not like another job that I have to be in from 8 to 4, 9 to 5.
She's been a great asset to me in many ways because she helps me group children and students. She usually takes the slower students or those that need extra help, and she takes the new students who are very bright but probably are not on the same level with our children.
I really never stop to think when I am going to retire. I know, everyone asks me the same question, are you coming back next year? And of course I keep saying, well, I don't know, no. But I really, I feel young when I'm working with the children. I enjoy working with the children, and I really, as long as I have the health, the time, and so on, I will be there.
It's been a lot of years since I was sent to the blackboard to do a math equation, but watching Angela Falciano made me remember my school days and my favorite teachers. Then as now, I marvel at their source of energy and patience. Let's face it, teachers are very special people. Next week, we will meet Bill Ellis, the coach of the track team at West Catholic Boys High School. Under Bill's direction, the runners at West have earned many awards and words of praise, but more importantly, they have learned a great deal about life and how to live it to the fullest. We will also travel to the hills of Appalachia and visit with Stanley Hicks, a unique individual who combines his love of music and nature with his love of God in a beautiful, simplistic fashion. Stanley's lifestyle may not be flashy, but his feelings are golden and should be an inspiration to us all. In our short segments, as well as a feature of DABAR, we will have another in our Person in the Pew series. I want to express our thanks for those of you who have written telling us how you appreciate Reel to Reel. One woman from Marlton, New Jersey wrote us saying, "It's good to see the Lord working among his people. It gives me hope for myself." Why don't you write Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, Philadelphia, 19103. Thank you, and God bless you.